You say it was the heartbreak of your divorce that cracked you open
Yeah.
to reveal some of your biggest trauma. What and that turned out to be actually your childhood. How did your divorce lead you back to your childhood?
Well, it made me get quiet, first
Yeah.
of all. And it made me think about, who am I now?
Yeah.
How do I move forward if I'm not somebody's wife, if I'm not the First Lady of California? Who is Maria? How do I, conduct myself moving forward? Well, what does forward look like? And so I tried to stop myself, get quiet, and really think about, who am I? How did I end up here?
Yeah.
How did I end up in this place?
And how did poetry become a part of it, Maria?
I just
didn't know
started
you
writing. Well, I
yeah.
didn't. I had written, obviously, all the news
Yes,
stories.
yes.
I wrote that but that's a different kind of writing. I wrote gratitude journals. Today I went and I saw Oprah. We had a fun time. This is what the day was like. But this kind of poetry, sitting there and just being quiet and realizing, oh, wait a minute, I'm sobbing. What am I sobbing about? Oh, I'm lonely. What am I lonely about? When did I first feel lonely? Where did that come from? Oh, I'm heartbroken. Is this the first time I felt it? Oh, no, I'm not. Let me close my eyes. Let me think about when I was a young girl and I was in a house by myself. And then I just started writing, and it just poured out of me.
So let's start with your mother, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who's one of the most formidable, powerful. I mean, I remember years ago saying if she ran for president, I
Yeah.
would do whatever I could to help her.
Right.
And I think if she were born at another time, she would have been
Exactly.
president. So Eunice Kennedy Shriver, her brothers are your uncles.
Right.
And were President John F. Kennedy and Senator Robert Kennedy. And Eunice was, as you say in the book, the most impactful person in your entire life. And in the book, you describe your household as being like a chaotic pressure cooker. Give us a picture of that.
Well, when I was little, we lived on a farm kind of outside of Washington, D.C., and my mother started the Special Olympics. So she had like 100 people with intellectual disabilities running around in the backyard, along with 100 volunteers and coaches. And then my father would have all these young Peace Corps volunteers who wanted to go out and change the world, and they were running around on any given weekend. And my mother had this camp during the week, and I
Where
had four
are you
brothers.
in the midst of all that?
And I had four brothers, and they had like 20 dogs. And I was the only girl. I am the only girl. And I was in the middle of all of that. And so I was like, okay, where do I belong in all of this? And I had a horse, and I would go and spend my time with the
Miss
horse
Bell.
because it was the only place that was quiet. It was the only place that I was like, I could hear myself think. And I wanted to be a lot like my mother because she was my role model, right? But it was chaotic and crazy and tragic, and there was constant upheaval. There were constant people coming in and out of the house. The table was filled with 15, 20 people. There was Mother Teresa, Robert McNamara, there were vice presidents, everybody
World
was
leaders,
world
yes.
leaders.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to your house, there are all these letters in the bathroom from like all the world leaders you've ever read about in
and
history.
you're like 23, right?
Yes.
And you're 24.
Yes.
And I got the message that, you need to be this. And I never dawned on me to question that. I just expected that that's the path that I was going to take.
So did you feel loved?
I didn't even know what that was. Nobody talked about love in my house. It wasn't a conversation anybody was having. We were out to change the world. We were talking about my Uncle Jack. We were talking about the Peace Corps. We were talking about people with intellectual disabilities. That's what we were
when
talking
tragic
about.
things would happen, I remember having this conversation with you 20 years later, because I still remember November 22nd, 1963, like it was yesterday.
It's probably in your body.
Yes, it's in my body because I was 9 years old, walking home from school in the rain by myself, and President Kennedy had been shot. And I remember having a conversation with you, and you said, we never discussed it at our house.
No.
And I could not believe that.
Well, we didn't discuss feelings in my house. My mother had a saying where she would say, I don't want to hear one yip out of you. And I don't think she did it to be mean. She did it to just keep it moving.
So the president of the United States, her brother is shot, and there's never a conversation about that.
No, there's never a conversation about any of it.
And then 4 years later, your uncle is shot, and there's never a conversation about that.
It's just like, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. And I think that came from her mother, who had gone through losing to other children.
Yes.
And she just kept moving. She had a strong faith. And I think she wanted to represent a figure to her children. Things happen, but we have to carry on.
That's why this book, I Am Maria, is so miraculous, actually, because you came from an environment of what happened to you. Nobody discussed feelings. Nobody talked about really what were tragic events in the household. You just kept going and kept doing, and let's show what we can do to serve the world. And yet you've now offered us your soul. I want to begin with some of your beautiful poems. So in one stanza of a poem titled The Child Within, I think, is that the first one? Yes, I'm going to read it, okay?
Okay, you read it.
The child within. What are you afraid of, says the voice of the adult, full of judgment and scorn. I realize that's my mother talking to me. I know she can't abide fear or weakness. She can't handle neediness. She can't comfort the child in me. Don't come in my room, says my mother. Stay out of my room. Get out. Go away. Get out. Go away. So I do. That's my mother's voice. Stern, scary, terrifying. The child in me is anxious and scared. I wonder about the child in her. Is that child anxious and scared? Nobody saw her. Nobody sees me.
That was how I grew up. And I have come full circle to really thinking about the child in my mother, how nobody saw her, nobody comforted her. And I think our job is to heal ourselves so we don't continue the pattern, right? I admired my mother. She's still my greatest role model. I think about her probably every single day. I'm in conversation with her.
And you were one of those daughters, like Gail.
Right.
You were my two best friends, and I didn't have anything close to that kind of relationship with my mother. And both of you talk to your mothers every day, multiple times a day, and I could never understand, what the hell are y'all talking about?
We were talking, about work, about my brothers, and about what are we doing? How are we changing the world? But I realized after my mother died, really, that nobody talked to her about her feelings. Nobody comforted her. Nobody talked to her about her grief. So how could I have expected her to do that for me? And I wanted to break that pattern as a mother. I wanted to break that for my own children. So I talk a lot about feelings. I talk a lot about...
With your boys and your girls.
With my boys and my girls, and with my friends as well. To me, that's really important, is to go deep and to understand, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? How can I be there to support you? In any way, because I didn't get that as a kid.